All right, so just like you have presented, it shows that we are actually following what we did in our last class. So the issue you are actually having there is what I actually have here, and I wanted you to check it from your end, and it's still not resolved. So, like I said, I will look into it and see if there's any upgrade as regard to that. But in all, we'll assume that we have learned some of these important machine learning methods on how to convert different data type. Started from how to convert string to number, and then from number to dates, and then finally how to extract. Remember what I told us about this, that the whole of what we are doing is to ensure that our data is passable into a predictive analytics model, which the computer will be able to use to predict. But eventually, when we get to the aspect of supervised learning, we'll be able to pass our data into a model that can perform predictive analytics. So that is the essence of what we have been doing since, which falls under unsupervised learning, which falls under unsupervised learning. All right, so in this section, we just take it further. So the note I have here is that now that we have sign up months and sign up day, so we can drop the original sign up. We can drop the original sign up. So what are we talking about? Which data are we working with precisely? We have, let me see if this is the copy where okay, let me see if, so this was where we stopped, where we converted. So this is where we're actually trying to extract the months. We are able to extract the date. So I just want to know if we actually got the final data before this error. Okay, so let me comment this out first, just to check. So let's check for this, that's converted months. Converted months. Let me just check and see what we have here. So converted month is calling out only the month. So as it stands now, we need to update it in the real data set. This is the data set where we have converted. I think we extracted the day. I think so. We extracted the day. Let me just check again. We extracted the day. So now we need to trying to identify which one is our real data set. The one with the updates of the dates we were able to extract. See converted. Let me check for converted. Let me check for converted instead of just converted month. to know we saved this somewhere. Okay, good, perfect. So it's converted. It's converted. That is where we have the updated day. So what will have happened is that if we are able to convert that month, then there wouldn't have been need for this particular syntax. There wouldn't have been need for this particular syntax. At least we will not have a day, we will not have months standing on its own. Then we will now be able to say we no longer need sign up dates. So, but depending on when we will, depending on when we will resolve the aspect of months, I think we should just go to the next topic. Let me see first if there's anything I can do here. All right, so we'll come back to that. So let me just add some, in case we come back to that aspect, we'll be able to fix that within these two cells that I added. So let's quickly talk about calculation based on condition. So there are some methods we need to learn under the calculation based on method, based on condition rather. Let's quickly look at this particular topic. So calculation based on condition. Okay. Calculation based on condition. So let me mark down. Also, calculation based on condition. So here, let me just give us notes. So we want to perform some calculation on that particular data based on certain condition. And the essence is for us to also be exposed to another set of functions which can also be used to perfect your data for modeling. So just to explain, use np dot where. So this is what we are actually focusing. Use np dot where function to create a number column based on a logical condition. Based on a logical condition. So in this case, we are focusing on name and discounts. We are focusing on name and discounts. So if we are focusing on that, so let me just use comments. So from the converted data frame, select name, select name and discounts. Select name and discounts. So I just want to use this to explain the concept. What is the syntax? We call the name of the data itself, where we have those two mentioned features. Then, of course, we'll next list inside list. We have already learned all this method from the beginning because I'm selecting two different features from my data. So I will just follow the case, or you better copy it as your first. The timeout here. You paste. Just separate with a comma and call the next header, which is the discount. So maybe also take it from here to avoid typographical error. So when there's a timeout, just go and click on the next cell, then paste. So if I run it, you can see that with this, I have called out these two columns. Now, the next thing we are going to do is here, I call them out because these are the columns that I actually want to focus on. Remember, the topic is what? We are performing calculation based on our condition, and the emphasis is on the application of this function, which is used to create a number column based on a logical condition. So what we are saying is that the whole of this discount at the end of the day is either 1 or 0. So that anywhere there is yes, is either is represented with 1 or is represented with 0. The idea is that you cannot pass this into a predictive analytics model. So these are still part of what you need to work on. Because if you remember from the beginning, analytics model prefer when all the variables are numbers. And while we are still focusing on this, the name is an identifier, which is not a perfect data to be passed into a predictive analytics model. Likewise, the discount. So what we are trying to do here is that we want the model not to misinterpret the representation of this data. So instead of that, for now, we will convert them to numbers. But we are going to convert them to number with applying condition. So the model will be trained in this case now. Anywhere it says yes, it should represent it with number. So at the end of the day, we will now substitute all the numbers that will have been converted, all the yes that will have been converted to number into that model, such that the next time we call this data, in this column discount, you are not going to be saying yes, no, yes, no. This will be difficult for the machine to interpret. That is why we are converting them to number. Now, not just that, I'm just using this to teach you this method, np dot what, where function. That should, in case there is a column value that need to be converted, that need to be represented with number instead of string, then you know that there is a function called np.where you can actually use based on specified condition. That is the message. So why I called out these two headers, because I want to focus on them. So I want to give a brief note here, or for us to start the conversion, we have to import our numpy, because if you look at this function here that you mentioned, it requires a Python library called what? NumPy. Okay, so whenever you want to create a data frame or you want to enhance data, large data exploration in Python, you definitely need what? NumPy. So if in the course of other analysis, you have not imported the NumPy, you have to import it. But I don't want to assume. Let me officially observe it again. So my first step is what? Import what? NumPy. NumPy as NP. Import NumPy as what? NP. So I'll quickly do that. I'll say import. These are things we are already familiar with. NumPy as NP, because we need it to implement the where function as a condition. So once we have done that, the next, let me confirm the importation of that. Okay, so that has been imported successfully. So the next thing is trying to explain with comments, so that when you are writing your notes, it will be easier for you to understand. So next thing is turn. So this is actually what we are doing. Turning field, or let me just put it this way, turning field into one where you have yes. That is the logic. So anywhere we have yes, we will convert it to what? To one. Then and 0 to anywhere we have no. So that is exactly what we are targeting. Okay, so now to implement that, the syntax will be, so how do we achieve this? The syntax is going to be, okay. The syntax will simply be, you call the name of that data which is converted as the name of my data. So from it, I will select the first one, which is a discount, as a string. I think I copied it the other time. Let me see if I can still have it. Okay, I still have it here. So discounts, because we have to convert them one after the, let's look at it. We are focusing on discount. Now discounts, say equals to, then you bring in the function np.where, np.where. Don't forget it is a function. Now inside this function, you supply, just like the previous techniques that we observed. That is, this one, what we are trying to say is that we are trying to substitute that whatever you are going to get here should replace the current one. That is why you use selected it from the data and you are equating it to the result you intend to get. So which means that you have to supply the heading to the where, because the values in that discount are the values the where should convert to what? One, as you rightly described. That anywhere the value under the discount is yes, should be represented with one. Where the value under discount is no, should be represented with 0. That is what we are saying. So there is need for you to supply the value. And in supplying the value, you have to supply, you have to observe the data where the value, the header with the values is. So which means that at this point, I am calling my converted again, which means that now you are supplying this to the function np.what, where. Then you are saying that from this data set, select, from this data set, select the discount. From this data set, select the discounts. That is what we are saying. Now, you are still inside the where bracket, the where parenthesis bracket. You simply do equals to equals to. Remember, in programming, I must have explained to us that two equal sign does not mean assignment. When it is one equal sign, it is assignment. which means that you are assigning a value into what? A variable. But once it is two equal sign, it means it represents equality. So what we are saying is that what? Once you call out this and the values here should be set to, that is where you want to implement. So conditionally, remember we said based on certain condition, and we are using Python control statements here. So where you will simply say the yes. The yes, so check how is it typed in the record itself, which is capital letter Y. Yes. That is what? If it is yes, it should be what? 1. Remember, this is conditional statement. Now, every conditional statement has the true value and the false value, which means that if it is yes, give it 1. If it is not yes, which is no, give it what? 0. So you simply put comma and put 0. So that settles it. If it is yes, give it 1. If it is not yes, which is no, assign 0. Now you have closed your where function. So the next thing is for you to call the data again. So let's execute it and see if it was accepted. Now for us to view our results, let's call the data and see whether where you have yes or no will have been changed to 1 and 0. So that is what we want to confirm now. So let me just use comments in case you want to write your no. Therefore, to confirm if you have changed yes to 1 and no to 0, we'll run this syntax. We'll call the data. Now, what is the data now? Converted. CON, double tap to display the list of your variables, and then run it. So you can see that if you come to discount, you have what? 0, 0, 0, 0. So which means that there is still an error somewhere, because what we are supposed to have, all the places where we have yes instead of 0 should be 1. But what we have here now is just what? 0, 0. So let's quickly so let's assume the values are outputted as expected. After this, you have to update your data with this, because if you call out that particular data like converted, you will notice that you still have, okay, yeah, we have already updated. Because we have it substituted now, only that the condition is not properly applied as expected, which will be figured out. Try to know if it is a library update or not. So let's see if we have. So the next topic we want to look at is so let me put this comment to remind us that we have unfinished business here. Check again. Come back to this. So we still have what we call dummy variable as another topic. All these are different techniques that you will need to correct your given data or to model data for predictive analysis. So the idea is for you to be exposed to these different methods. Like as we just use dot where now. So anywhere you have a string and you want to convert, then you can always specify it. Like if you want to convert this particular educational level now, that is anywhere you have college, you want to represent it with maybe a word or maybe a number, let's say 5. Then anywhere there is high school, that's where you have just 2 values, yes or no. But here now we have multiple value. So the idea is that if there is any need for you to convert string to what? To number in a column value, you can use that dot where. Now, we also have what we call dummy variable. Dummy variable, let me mark it down because it's also another topic. Also another topic. So what do we mean by dummy variable? Let me start by defining it. From there, you understand what we actually intend to achieve with it. So dummy variable is a field that only contain one and 0. So the one I mean here, let me put it is 1 and 0. To represent the presence, of 1, to represent present 1, absence, let me break it down. Absence, we use 0 of the value, comma, also known as 1, want to host encoding. So just to explain more, they are used to transform. They are used to transform categorical. They are used to transform categorical fields into multiple numeric fields. So here we are targeting another logic here now. So the data we are using here, we are still using the same data to do this. So if you look at the definition of a dummy variable, is a field that only contain 1 and 0 to represent the presence, 1, absence, 0 of a value, also known as one-to-host encoding. So these are all machine learning techniques under unsupervised. So here, our focus is going to be on, we are going to use the educational level as a focus. as represented, we have college, we have high school, and they are all repeated. We have name, we have age, we have that. Now, let's quickly see how we can use the dummy variable to actually represent their present. That is, where we have college, there will be a number that will represent it. Where we have high school, there will be a number that will represent it. Now, don't forget what I explained here. Presence, 1, absent. So we are going to say that in a column, if there is college, if it displays 1, it means that what? College is present. In that same educational level, if a column displays 0, it means that what? College is not present. For example, now this is it here. So here is expected to display 1. We show that what? College is present. Just like the same concept, what we are trying to do here now, but it's another method entirely, which is used to check, in this case, want to check the presence of a value or the absence of a value. So we are representing the presence with 1 and the absent with what? 0. So that is what we call dummy variable, where you use number to represent the presence of a value, also the absence of a value. The concept, it is called dummy variable. Okay, I believe that is clear. Now let's quickly look at the application. Let's quickly look at the application in your notebook. So the application. So the first thing is for us to use the function. We are going to use the function. Let me also use comment to explain it. So use pd dot get. So this is actually the emphasis. This is what I want you to learn as one of the method for machine learning under unsupervised. Now, the name of the function we are talking about is dummies. Dummies. To create dummy variables. In Python. So anytime you want to represent the presence of a value with a number and the absence of a value with a number, this is the function you are going to use. Now, let's select the data we want to really actually create a dummy variables for, which is what? Like here I said, focusing on education level. So we are focusing on this. So the first thing is for us to pull it out and focus on it using the same syntax converted as the name of my data set. Next, because it's two header, so I have to, two words header description. Then I think the best thing is for you to copy it from the data to avoid typographical error. So I'll simply come here, we time out like this, click on one of the cell, come back. And then, so this, we have called it out. So this is what we want to focus on. So we want to check for want to represent the presence of these various value: college, high, school, college, because they are repeated. So the next thing is create. This is a task we are given. Create dummy variable. Now, remember I said you are going to use pd.get underscore dummies underscore dummies, because it's not only one. Then the name of the data set follows, which is the same converted. Then from the converted data set, we are selecting what? The educational level. Okay, so with this, if you run it, it will display false. You can see it now. So this is what you get. Once you run it, you have false. So this will display true or false. So you can see that what it's saying is that it brings out, is separated. It's separated. Remember, we are still on the main topic called what? Row granularity. So what has happened here is that from one header, you have been able to what? To generate, as in all the values in that one header, which I call out here, they are now standing as separate headers, telling us where you have it and where you don't have it. So under college as index 1, if you check here now, you can see it here. Under college, you can see that what? College at index 0, you have what? It there. That's why it's saying true. Under what? Graduate value. If you check where you have graduate value, which is at index 2, what is telling you that what? College is not there. So it's either telling you false or what? True. So that is one first thing we have derived. But remember that we are supposed to represent the presence of a value with 1 and the presence of another value with 0. So which means that this place that we have seen true, what we are supposed to represent it in our data is 1. Where it's showing false should show what? 0. So in doing that, we have to attach another function to it. So let me use comment. So here, just interpret what we outputted. So this will display. This will display true or false. This will display true or false. But that is not our target. Our target is for where we have true to be represented with 1, where we have false to be represented with 0. So therefore, to convert the string, because the true and the false, they are string, to number or numeric, then you use this syntax. So the syntax will be, just in case you are making your notes, the syntax will be, you copy the whole of this function that have already analyzed the Boolean value, whether it is true or not. You copy it and paste. The only thing you do, you have to attach one of the method on how we converted string to integer. So we just concatenate it to the entire function. Remember, it was as type. I believe you still remember this function. As type int. You can still remember this, which means that automatically, if you run it again, you see that what? They are now represented with 0. So anywhere you see 1, represent presence of what? College. Anywhere you see in this same row, college is present here. Then in this same row, undergraduate header, there's no college. There's no college. Then if you check here now, in your second record, because what is happening here is that if you go back to the main record, you see college here, and then you see what? High school. So that is why if you check here, if you check under high school, you have 1 here, which means that what is present. But if you check the next record, 1, 2, let's go to the main data and check. after high school here, you will see 0 and 0 here. So which means that what? At this index, there's no high school here, there's no high school here, there's another high school. So if you go back to what we outputted, you will see that what? It's followed that format. There is no high school here, there is high school here. The next two, there's no high school, there's high school. The next one, no high school, high school. So if you check under each of those header, you can actually check for the presence of each of these unique value under what? Educational level. So I want to verify if you actually understand what we are doing here.
Yes, I understand.
So in your own understanding, can you break it? Can you explain it? Let me know if you really understand what I'm doing.
The get dummies value is to display the presence of um, values being given at intervals, but
Okay.
this time it displays them in terms of true or false. Then we now use the get type to convert the the values because they are true or false. You can assume them to be booleans, so and change them to zeros and one. So that's why it's now be given as one and zero and zeros and one. Where there is true is one and where there is zeros is false.
All right. That is good. It shows that you are actually following. Thank you for that. Now, the next thing we want to do is that we want to save it in the above output, because if you check the whole data now, it will call out converted, it will call out converted, you call out converted, you can see that what? We have not actually represented, we have not replaced this with what? 1 being the presence of that value and what? 0 being the absence of that value. So the next step is for us to save. So to save the above outputs, to save the above outputs as dummy variable, as dummy variables. So the syntax will be, we'll simply say dummy variable. I'm just giving this as a name that we hold this one that we have already represented or we've already applied or created the dummy variable. So just to indicate the particular header we channel this to, say dummies variable underscore what? Edu. So that just to remind, this can be any name actually. So dot what? Or equals to pd dot get, then underscore dummies. As we applied it, dummies, then you open the bracket. So the whole of what we did here now, we'll now call the data itself converted. Inside it, then select that particular header which we are converting to Control C and then paste it. Then of course, you come outside. In order to be represented as integer, we add the method as type equals to what? Int. As type equals to int. Then if you run it, you will see that the updates will have been applied. Now, since we save it in a variable, we have to call the variable before we can see it. So let's say what? Du, then tab, just to view the variable name and run it. So if you check now, we have officially saved it in a known variable, because now we are going to pass it into the main data set. So that is what we just did here now. So the next thing is we have to concatenate it. We have to concatenate it. Sorry, just give me a minute.
Sorry. Sorry, I don't know if you were hearing me before. I don't know, I mistakenly muted.
I'm hearing you now. I wasn't hearing you before.
Okay, okay. So I said then to combine the converted, so the converted is the data set to combine the converted data with the dummy variable, dummies underscore edu, just for you to know which one we are combining here, tables using concat. So we're going to use concat. Remember, we've learned this concat method long before now. Concat method. Function. So we are going to concatenate. We are adding this. So as usual, to concat, the syntax will simply be ed dot concat as a function. So what are we concatenating? We'll select the first data, which is converted, then comma, and then we are joining it with this particular dummy variable. So Control C to avoid error and paste it. Now, remember that when you are joining, when we learned concatenation, when you are joining data on the horizontal axis, we use axis equals to 1. I hope you still remember this. We use axis equals to 1. So I'll just put comma here, and simply say axis equals to 1. Axis equals to 1. The whole of this supposed to be in the selection bracket. It's a mistake here. So just to put a comma here and paste the dummy variable. So the axis comes after they put a comma here. I'll simply say axis equals to 1. So if I run it, you will see that we have all of them created. So we have substituted, we have imputed our dummy variables into the data set itself. So at this point now, the whole of this column, educational level, should be deleted, because that is what you have represented with what? This, your dummy variable. So that will be the next thing. So what that axis equals to 1 does is to avoid them stacking on top of each other. Because if I don't put this, for example, if you don't put this, I think is a concept that I have explained before now. If I run it, you see what is happening now. So they are stacking. So that is why we have to put what? The axis equals to 1, so that it will be concatenated horizontally. Because when you don't put the axis equals to 1, it will concatenate, but it will concatenate it under its axis. What? That was the reason why the whole thing stacking the other time. So now, at this point, the whole of this educational level is no longer relevant, because we have already represented it and we have expanded. This is part of the row what? Granularity. We have increased the numbers of features now, or the column. So now the next thing we are going to do is after concatenation, I think I'll stop here after this very one. After concatenation, then Then save it as, in other words, we are going to overwrite it, save it as converted so that it will replace the old one. Because what you did here now is that you just display the value. The whole of this, here you have added your dummies variable, has not been acknowledged as this data set. If not, if you call converted, you are still going to have this instead of having this version. So we have to overwrite the other one by saving it as the same name. So I believe you must have known that before. So saving it that way, it means that we will now, what we simply do is to copy the whole of this code that generated the combined data and say converted is equals to this. So if I run it, I have overwrite it. So going forward, if I call that converted, if I call the converted, so now it has replaced what? The initial one automatically. So this is automatic way of overriding or writing your data. So now the next thing is for us to drop, because like I told you, we don't need this one. We don't need this educational level anymore. But that is what we have substituted with what? The dummy variable. So what we are going to do here now, I think to avoid having too many cells. So let's say therefore to drop or delete. To drop or delete educational level, education level, because we do not need it anymore. We don't need it anymore. So what is the syntax to quickly do that? To drop it? The syntax will simply mean you call the data set itself, converted, and then you add dot drop, which is the function for dropping. I believe because of analyzing, we must have used this particular function. So you specify the column because it's not all the column in that particular set you want to drop. So you say columns, you select that header you want to drop, which is educational level. So let me just copy it from here, Control C, and then and just what? Paste it here. So if I run it now, you see that what? Automatically you have deleted it from here. So now you have other ones are represented, but it's as if we have this particular data repeated, because I've seen college, I've seen another college. I've seen college repeated. Let me see. Discount college. Does it mean we concatenated it twice somewhere? Okay, I think here everything is correct. I just want to know. Let me try and check converted. converted. From having converted, it means that this has not been dropped. Okay, yeah, because we have not acknowledged it, yes. Let me quickly see. Converted equals to converted. So if I call converted, okay, so the drop effect has taken place. So, but my challenge now is there's a mix up somewhere because we are not supposed to have college twice. We are supposed to have just from here. We are not supposed to have it duplicated. Okay, so what you try and do is that try and apply it. Let me see. I believe I mix it up somewhere. And there's no time for me to debug it now. Debug it later. Did you hear me? Joseph, are you
Yes,
here?
try and apply it.
Yes, try and apply it. So your assignment is to replicate the same thing, starting from where we started applying a dummy variable. I'll take time to find out